A brawl is surely brewing all over again, thanks to the recent release of Cuphead's long-awaited Delcious Last Course. In short, if you loved Cuphead, the DLC serves up a second helping of similar goodness, with some extra animation flair, a distinct playstyle with Miss Chalice, neat ways to earn coins through a gauntlet of challenging mausoleum mini-boss hybrids, and of course, a handful of new bosses to test your limits against, and yes, they are as hard as ever, if not more so. I always thought a game with inviting animation appealing to very young and mega boomer generations featuring brutally challenging bosses was hilarious. The design of each is thoughtfully done to test your platforming ability, usage of toolkit variety, quick twitch reactions, spacing, and aim as you battle it out. The creativeness each phase centers around is spectacular across the board. Truly, there's no single boss I dislike in Cuphead, so today I want to highlight the best of the best. Before we dance with the devil, a word from today's sponsor, Dungeon Fighter Online. DFO is a free-to-play multiplayer hack-and-slash RPG with 16 unique characters. In stylish retro pixel graphics, you join other players in raids and dungeons. Each character has more than 60 class advancements to customize your playstyle. Style really is the name of the game, with insane animations for their hilariously long combos. The game recently bumped the level cap from 100 to 110, offering new storylines, areas, and dungeons with level 105 epic gear. There's also regular events for newbies and veterans alike. There's a warm-up event to power new characters to 100, with loads of loot to get you up to speed. Then Path to a New Adventure offers event materials you can use to buy weapons and crafting upgrade materials as you obtain new gear at the max level. They're even pairing fresh players with veteran players in dungeon events to teach you the tricks of the trade to beat the most difficult dungeons. And everyone gets extra rewards for participating. If you're ready to hack and slash your way into Dungeon Fighter Online, download the game via the link in the description and use coupon code WELCOME to DFO GIFT for useful items and a silly gear set. And now without further ado, here are the top 10 best bosses in Cuphead with the Delcious Last Course. Number 10, Dr. Kahl's Robot. A common choice for Cuphead's hardest romp, the Iron Giant mixes 3 phases of tricky maneuvering to challenge your inner aviator. The first phase is my favorite in terms of strategy. His 3 weak spots all correspond to his offense: the head laser, the sweeping vertical beam releasing from the chest, and a rising trail of spaceships from his stomach. The order in which you decide to destroy these weak points dictates how you deal with the arguably more difficult mechanics. Destroying the head spews a barrage of bolts at you. Snuffing out the vertical beam spawns a magnet to muddle your movement, or a twisting arm to cut the arena in half and fire orbs vertically upon exit. And halting tummy spaceflight treats you to tracking bombs with explosive after effects. Each section on the body takes a fair amount of punishment too. It's up to you to decide which configurations are most sensible to deal with and in what order. I love that it's equally challenging on both ends, and the possible combinations make for perpetually diverse gameplay. In the end, you have to deal with all the enraged attacks as his heart becomes exposed in a brief section before phase 2. This phase is more forgiving and short, though the wealth of tracking bombs and awkward offensive windows as the head zooms above and below is still tricky. More than anything, it requires patience to avoid hasty mistakes. It's important to carry as much HP as possible before the Doctor's laughter-filled finale. His chuckles are only the tip of the sensory iceberg. To conclude the bullet hell bot bonanza, his gems fire an absurd amount of refractions. Getting Skinny to dodge them all while applying offense and avoiding the electric barriers is one of the hardest phases in the game. The adrenaline spike carries well after the first 2 phases into a pure rush once you finally claim a knockout. While the second phase leaves me wanting more, it is nice reprieve between this bombastic finale and the demanding strategy of phase 1. A total package able to claw its way onto the list. Number 9, Angel and Devil. Though the main game revolves around your dance with the devil, it was neat to see a cameo in the DLC's secret boss, along with an angelic counterpart. This fight is a shining example of how creativity and subtle mechanics can dramatically alter the way Cuphead plays. Both deities guard the edges of the arena while attacking. Stuck in between, you have to balance their offense. The catch is the angel's attacks are translucent, doing no harm, while the devil's are tangible and dangerous. There are 3 primary hazards: fireballs, a full vertical sweeping beam, and lightning under the moving cloud. Unless you're an Invisidash Pro, you have to swap the devil and angel. This is done according to the direction you face. The devil will always face the player. If you're looking right and the devil shoots a beam pillar, turn left to remove the threat. What adds depth is how initially it may not seem like you need to worry about the angel's attacks, but the swap also affects the translucent attacks, making them sudden threats. You have to balance your placement with greater care than ever, being very specific about where and when you turn. The cloud in the center is a massive help as you can move without turning, but the movement can work against you, especially with the fireball ring. There may be no phase change, but Angel and Devil shows how a strong creative perspective can alter the course of battle. Number 8, Phantom Express. In a similar vein, I would argue difficulty isn't everything. The Phantom Express, other than perhaps the final phase, is one of Cuphead's easiest encounters. With the right tools, you can shred the eyes and the boss in the first phase. The second phase uses a trio of cars for a duo of hazardous hands and the targetable head. The trolley you're on can be moved by parries or a candy drop from the jack-o'-lanterns. You can ignore all of that by living on the edge though. Saving super can make short work of one of the sweeping heads in phase 3, and since the lightning attacks don't extend the arena's full length, you can safely shoot away at the other one. The final phase with a smaller target, short vulnerability period for the flames within, and busy environment that can distract you does make for a tougher finale, but you've likely saved plenty of health for it. All that I've said up to this point may make Phantom Express easier than most, but I appreciate how much expression there is within builds, clever placement, super management, and a final test of your dexterity. More than anything, I'm a massive fan of the spooky, scary aesthetic. It's reminiscent of nostalgic Halloween cartoon specials, and I'm here for it. Also realizing that makes me sound extremely old. Even if it didn't push me to the limits of my skill at my old age, the fun factor soared well into the top 10. Number 7, Calamaria. If doctors call it, holy shit, I just realized that that's a play on calamari. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. If Dr. Kahl's robot is exemplary for its player-controlled strategy and pressure, Calamaria is a fine example of the opposite. She combines a set of elements in a random order and forces you to respond, adding considerable tension. Her first phase starts with a single ability, then the rest are combos. She'll either spit 3 heads of homing pirate ghosts, alone they're fine, but when comboed, the margin for dodging gets a lot slimmer. She'll shoot tracking electric eels, similar to the pirates, but looser in movement and more about persistent evasion than a quick dodge. She'll also spray a burst of fireballs with parryable embers, which are by far the best as they're easy to avoid and the super farm is nice. She can combo any of these with a horse that spits water, forcing you upward, a turtle that fires 3 mines, blowing in a wide radius, or a school of pufferfish with parryable ones scattered throughout. The pufferfish trade super potential for dramatically obscuring safe spots, especially for pirate ghosts. The turtle's fine all around with distance from the spread, but the horse can really be a pain with the ghosts. Really, ghosts I guess are just the worst, or more transparently, I suck at dodging them. The phase lasts ages, so it can be a huge drain on your focus. That said, it was never sucking away entertainment value. I love the marine-themed attacks, it begs you to use adept piloting maneuvers that are satisfying to pull off, and the challenge never feels unfair. If I were basing it solely on this phase, she might warrant a spot in the top 5. Unfortunately, I'm not as keen on the second and third parts. I do like the second more, with a regularly growing number of eels popping up to spit pellets at you. Damaging them instead of Maria draws the phase out, while prioritizing her leaves you with overwhelming evasive requirements, especially with the periodic Gorgon rays freezing you. This forces the player to balance defense and offense well. The final phase is less exciting, simply following while avoiding the coral walls, debris, and pre-planning for the freezes to ensure you don't crash. Neither of the phases are bad at all, they just aren't nearly as deep as the first. In spite of their small decline in quality, the entire package led by an unforgettable first phase lands her at number 7. Number 6, Glumstone the Giant. My DLC experience started with a gargantuan bang against Glumstone. The amount of detail packed onto the screen was mind-boggling, making apparent the reports of the DLC having as many animation frames as the entire base game. The delightfully busy environment turns your eyes into a bouncy ball scouring controlled chaos. Glumstone revolves around cutting the arena in half, while said arena spawns gnomes to make it further unsafe without pest control on your end. He'll call on geese to cut away the top half, a beast to claw away the left half, and open his gullet for throat gnomes to send noxious fumes your way. All the while the platforms are shifting up and down, the ground remains unsafe with trippable gnome spikes, light blue gnomes crawl up platforms hammering back and forth, and dark blue gnomes shoot fireballs from the ground. It's a lot. It demands constant identification of what is currently unsafe, why, and how to respond. This requires split-second decision making and dexterity on an immensely satisfying level. The second phase also peels your eyes up, down, and all around. The foreground bleachers obscure your peripherals while hand puppets bounce a ball back and forth on the ground loaded with burrowing, bouncing gnomes. You need to note the height of each hand to plot the trajectory, ensure there aren't gnomes buzzing below, dodge, then hit the puppets diagonally after all of that. I struggle more here than I care to admit thanks to lack of skill and classic greed. The final phase takes a turn into the tummy. Here you have to note what platforms will be hit by debris, causing them to disappear, all while hitting a fast-moving target roofside. Eventually a platform will flail with parryable tentacles, a must to reset all the platforms. The diversity between demands throughout each phase, the incredible animation detail used to enhance the gameplay, and balanced challenge throughout it all makes the Giant a fantastic entry point to the Delcious Last Course. Number 5, Wally Warbles. Not to be outdone, the base game still has plenty of quality ammunition. Wally, in fact, was woefully underrated by me the first time I played. Frankly, I was rather awful at the plane combat and my inability to evade was exposed. What I appreciate as I've improved is the distinct differences throughout his design. The initial phase used to throw me, but now I realize that once an egg has been spat, you don't need to focus on anything past the west side of mid-screen. Instead, watch where the egg lands and move up or down a bit away from the wall. Boom, done. I appreciate the added dimension and simple horizontal fire becoming more complex on rebound. It's made further complex with multiple eggs shot in close succession and the trailing birds, but never to an unfair degree. The same can be said for his feather rain. It may be visual diarrhea, but with simple focus on only your placement against the rhythm of the feathers, it becomes more like a satisfying dance. That flow continues against the bird brain's expanding egg barrier. There's something really gratifying about the bob and weave in between their motion and scoring the perfect offensive window. You might wonder what's not to like. Well, the final phase isn't up to par with the rest. Primarily due to the carrier pigeons dragging him westward at random, removing your ability to attack. If you could flip your plane, it'd be fine, but it takes an attempt at adding dimension and instead neuters your offense. You could say that's the point, be patient and evade, but I'd rather the dance flowed equally all the way to the end. Even if the final notes aren't up to par, Wally's Waltz is one of my favorites in Cuphead. And he'd be the best plane bat in the game if it weren't for Hilda Bird. Bar none, one of my favorite animations in the game is her silly stupor unfurling into a devilish crescent moon. But I'm getting ahead of myself. She's a fantastic introduction to aviation with regular parry opportunities, attacks that make full use of the 3D space, and variation in her astrological forms to keep the battle fresh on replays. None of her forms is distinctly more different than the other, rather they ask very different levels of patience and reaction from the player. The mini blimps keep a constant pressure layered on you, her giggles can catch you napping, as can zooms to the side as she face changes. My real love affair though is with the moon, perhaps a contender for my favorite phase in the entire game. Outside of the appearance and my thematic appreciation, the mechanics are more than solid. Shooting stars force diligence in positioning, while spaceships either fire on a set pattern or baited when flying underneath according to their color. The large target makes this challenge forgiving, while the shooting stars and ships never miss a beat if you slip up. I still grin as widely as Hilda every time I reach the finale, making it well worthy of the top 5. Number 3, the Howling Aces. Actually, I guess the best plane boss in Cuphead isn't one where you're the pilot. I absolutely adore the concept. Riding amidst a literal dogfight, you have to battle the ranks to reach the pilot and make them cry mayday. The first phase has the plane hover above, with little doggies tossing a trio of tennis balls. The big dog is the hitbox, who will hop out to shotgun pump yarn out of a cat and flex his flying boomerang tattoos. That may not seem like much, but when combined with the movement of your platform plane and a sizable HP bar making it go on for quite some time, it's a lot to deal with. In spite of that, I felt a constant sense of progression and improvement as I played. Some of the dodges you end up pulling off feel incredible, all the way into a very silly phase 2. The tennis dogs jump out and jetpack circles around you while bow-wowing. Yes, they send the letters bow and wow at you, many being parryable. Is this phase hard? Absolutely not. Is it engaging? Yes. Yes, it is. Perhaps more than anything else in the entire game. Okay, maybe that's a stretch, but I'll never get over how adorable this is. The finale consists of a mind-boggling perspective shift. The plane grabs on and forces a few laser dodges on you before the cockpit opens and turns your screen 90 degrees. Firing waves of high and low hydrants, you have to use controls inverted to match the screen, which makes my brain feel like it's doing backflips on its side. I absolutely love developers finding tangible ways for the player to experience disorientation without it being displeasing or nauseating. Admittedly, this is close, but I still found it to strike a positive balance. It made me strategize to save super and dodge while in place, limiting my own offense, elongating an already rough phase. The best part, if headspins aren't for you, you can control your damage in phase 2 to entirely alter it. If you note the smoke before the jetpacks are disabled and control your damage, making them all smoke will lead to a similar setting with different mechanics. Instead of lasers, you're greeted again by the pups throwing fruit at you. A rain of hydrants will follow while the pilot, the only target that damages the actual boss, pops out periodically. I found this version to be harder, but you're welcome to pick your delicious last poison. In terms of animation, this further shines the DLC's phenomenal standard in both concept and frame-by-frame execution. That quality bleeds into the gameplay enough to garner top 3 billing. Number 2, Chef Saltbaker. In the end, there were really only 2 contenders for my top choice, and despite my love of Chef Saltbaker, his detracting factor carried him out of the top spot. We'll get there. Without question, Saltbaker's first phase exceeds Hilda's Moon as my favorite phase in the game. The animation is stunning to behold, sometimes to the detriment of my attention. You'll need it as he slices and dices danger headed your way. Flying limes and sweeping threes, a meteor shower of berries, sugar floating in waves with variable cubes, and animal bunnies bouncing from one side to the other. Everything is queued up by his animations in the background while you're in the midst of dodging what's already in front of you. The beautiful animation is the fight's way of indicating tells, and yet the knowledge doesn't make it any less difficult to execute. Some combinations are downright brutal, made all the more challenging by the persistent arcing fireball. It'll bounce in your direction every few seconds, adding another extra element to the madness to tip the challenge over the edge. Even if most of the difficulty is baked into that first phase, the Pepper Shaker Showdown is no slouch. Opting to remove damage directly from attacks to the boss itself, you must damage the pepper and send it flying directly at Saltbaker. They sneeze balls at you, seasonings rain down, and the fire continues to add that devilish obstacle. Now comes the bad part. What is this sculpture third phase? It's a throwaway that hardly lasts 10 to 15 seconds. Calling it half-baked would be generous. It would have been better left on the cutting board if they couldn't cook up more spice for it. At least the end challenges you with a fun and tight salt climb to Phantom Thief the Baker's finale. It's appropriately short for the level of challenge to end everything that comes before it. I cannot overstate how much I adore the first phase. The second isn't far behind, while the fourth is short but sweet. Even if the third leaves me a little salty, it's a testament to his overall greatness that he nearly claimed the top spot. And the number 1 best boss in Cuphead, King Dice. It's really not a fair comparison. King Dice is effectively a boss rush with strategic stakes, 10 different battles, and penultimate tension to rise far above the competition. The one argument I could make against this for Saltbaker is that 10 battles with more simple mechanics over a full-fledged cohesive experience is inferior. What makes Dice so great is how few duds there are in his roster of souls. The booze hounds are similar to Kahl's robot and how you choose to deal with them shaping the course of battle. The chips showcase random elements and how they shuffle through the arena. Wheezy shifts perspective by moving back and forth and shakes up firing balls in varying patterns. The Domino's revolving spike track makes the movement unique, as does their bird or ball shots behaving differently. The rabbit's magic makes for tricky dodges with a very easy target. The horse racer shines similar to any of the game's plain battles. The dancer forces you to meter offense and active evasion, and the 8-ball is, well, really easy if you can plan trajectories and fire away. The only one I actually dislike is the monkey. I appreciate the matching game being different. What I don't like is that you need to complete the entire game. It's needlessly long and easy to avoid, only becoming troublesome if you get impatient out of boredom. Then Dice himself forces you to flex the best of your parry skills to stay alive. Parries weren't often required at this level to win a battle, so it's cool to see them shine. Then there's the dice rolls controlled by you, planning your route, and the extra hard RNG incentivizing you to try out different paths. If you ask me whether I like Saltbaker as an individual over King Dice or any of his underlings, I would definitely say Saltbaker comes out on top. But as an entire package, King Dice's Gauntlet is my favorite battle in Cuphead. But of course, that's just my opinion. What bosses are your favorite with the delicious last course finally served? Next time, we'll answer the question of who the top 10 hardest are. Subscribe to stay tuned for that and more, and of course, I want to thank you for watching today. Much love to you, and I'll see you in the next video.